on what you need. And we're into fight week. So, man, we got to get into it, get into the fights. This is fight week, and we got so much, two tremendous fights coming out this week. And we are so excited. I think everybody's excited about this fight week and what is to come. So, in this particular uh stream, for those paying attention, we're gonna get right into it. We're getting into uh Spence versus Crawford, the different approaches that these fighters may take with one another, and how the fight may progress. There's many different ways the fight may progress, but particularly in this case, we're going to look at what seems to be one of the more reasonable things based on the information we have so far from watching at the workouts, from watching at how these fighters look. So we're going to look at Spence versus Crawford. No doubt about it. We're going to break down some of the possible approaches based on not only how the fighters look, not only how the workouts were, but also on the history of the fighters and how they usually approach their fights. So we're going to look at that in some detail and be able to give us some sort of picture as to how these fighters would approach this particular fight. We'll be looking at Crawford's approach to the fight, and we'll also be looking at Errol Spence's approach to the fight. This is all also be based on what the fighters said they are preparing for. So that will give us some sort of idea or clue as to how they'll mix it up. We kind of know how these fighters fight, but what I'm saying is we'll be able to actually look at it in more detail. We'll also be looking at Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, or Fulton versus Inouye, which is the better fight. And I've seen on the internet different people, different fans say which one they think is going to be the better fight. And that should be interesting because weigh-ins for Fulton versus Inouye happened today, earlier on today. So we'll talk more about that. The other thing we'll talk about is, again, this is mostly for fans, who would be or should be the pound for pound number one fighter, the it's going to be about George Kambosos. And, Ellie Seckbach said he is the worst champion, which is ridiculous. And I think he said worst unified champion, if I'm not mistaken. And this was something that he's using this as munition because a lot of people believe that George Kambosos lost the fight against Maxie Hughes. But what they are not realizing is they were influenced by the commentary from ESPN. So we will be able to speak on this a little bit more. There are a lot of people who don't know shit about boxing, and a lot of people, again, who know shit about boxing but are influenced by the media. So when you see certain things circulating and everybody saying the same thing, you have to wonder if it's a rumor or if it really has validation. And that calls for a little bit of critical thinking. And we will go into that in some detail. But before we do all of this, we're going to look at a passage of scripture, and we're going to break down that scripture, and we're going to go into it in a little detail before we move on. The scripture that I'm going to read is Matthew 5, verses 11 and 12. Let me get into it. Now, this is from the New International Version of the Bible, for those of you who read the Bible. And so it's going to be a little bit different. So, usually this is a beatitude. For those who don't know what a beatitude is, it's just basically the word for blessings. And it's quite contradictory, but yet it makes sense because these are the people in need who need blessings. All right. And in this beatitude, it talks about people who 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 are blessed. He's blessing people and saying, I wish you happiness. Those of you who are mourning in sorrow, I wish you happiness. Those of you who are humble in this world or being humbled by this world, I wish you happiness. Those who are hungry and they're thirsty to see justice done. He also says, I wish you happiness. Those people who are merciful and give people second chances, and I wish you get mercy. And he says, I wish you happiness, those whose hearts are clear and pure. To have a clean or pure heart, that is to be sincere people. I bless those of you who seek peace. You seek to be peaceable about people. You seek to see people peaceably working with each other. And then he talks about, I bless those who are persecuted because they do the right thing, because they live for God. And he said, the kingdom of heaven is going to be yours. And then this scripture here is the one I really want to go into here. So Matthew 5:11 says, God blesses you when you are mocked and persecuted and lied about because you follow my ways. Be happy about it. Be glad, for great is your reward that awaits you. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted like you were as well. And I wanted to go into that just in a little detail because this will preface some of the things that I'm going to say concerning the media and the journalism that is happening in boxing, which has been atrocious for a good minute. And there are certain media people I want to praise, and there are certain media people I'm going to target, and I'm going to give you an example of people who are pushing false narratives in there so you guys can pay attention to those people and how they conduct themselves. So I'm going to go into that in some detail. Now, I know all media tends to be biased towards the A side and so on, or the people they favor. And it's because there's a big machine, boxing's a machine. It's fueled and financed by people who are multi-millionaires, multi-millionaire businesses and billionaire businesses finance boxing. So I understand all of that, but nonetheless, we're going to speak on this. And this is why I chose this particular beatitude, because I feel like to make a difference in boxing, in the sport of boxing, to make a difference, you need to speak about things other people are not speaking about because you're not financed by the big juggernauts in business. So you are free to say what you have to say. And me being a fan, I'm free to say what I want to say. So I'm going to say. So once again, check out Matthew chapter 5, 11 and 12. Really good stuff. Let's get into it. Spence versus Crawford is what I'm going to, before I even go into Spence versus Crawford, I think that's like the dessert and that's like the full meal. I'm going to preface by going into instead that false narratives created by bad journalism. And we're going to use the example of Cambosis. Now, first of all, I want to speak about some of the very stellar journalists in boxing. Ray Flores is a stellar journalist. I'm trying to remember his name right now. From Showtime, he's a host on Showtime, and he has a program. If you guys can help me out with his name, that would be great. His program is called, if I'm not mistaken, it's called. He has this rapid fire where he gives 10 questions at the end. I forgot his name. He's a Afro-American gentleman. I can't remember if his hair is bald, if he's bald or not. Excellent gentleman. If you know his name, please help me out here. He works for Showtime. There was a lady also on Showtime excellent. I don't know what happened to her. I haven't seen her in a while. I think she was on Fox. Excellent journalism. I mean, stellar journalism. Um, I forgot what her name is. She's from England. She looked like she was a colored person as well. But these are examples of stellar journalists. Also, even I've seen boxers who have been somewhat stellar journalists. And even though they're giving their opinion, it's usually based on information that you can trust. So there's some people out there who really do an excellent job as journalists. Again, Ray Flores, he introduces all the fighters. You have the I can't remember his name for anything, but he does the interviews with fighters. It doesn't matter if they're on Showtime or not. He's interviewed all the fighters, Terrence Crawford, and all these people. I'm forgetting his name. He's a dark gentleman. Not dark, but he's a black gentleman, and he's really well spoken, proper English, everything. You know, very unbiased, very much listening to the fighter's perspective, asking the tough questions. I'm forgetting what his name is, but he was the when Ray Flores is not there, he's hosting this. And also, I must say, Ray Flores did an excellent job also when he had to host. I don't know if it was BLK Prime or one of those other companies that came up new on the scene. He was there. Really love his journalism. Now, there's a difference between being a journalist and being someone who's hired as a specialty on a specialty team to analyze and to comment and to make conclusions about fights. Okay, Ray Flores is not that. The other gentleman who I'm talking about I can't remember the name of his podcast for nothing. For Showtime, he also, and neither does the lady who is from England, but they are all stellar. However, when it comes to analyzing boxing, you always get a certain degree of biasness, but what I'm looking for is as honest. If it's going to be a biasness, there's going to be a biasness that is not controlled by the big engine, not controlled by the conglomerates, not controlled by big business. The worst commentary team I've seen between DAZN, and DAZN is pretty bad too, and even Showtime is pretty bad at times. But the worst commentary team I've seen out there to this day is ESPN's. ESPN's commentary team is atrocious. Atrocious. They just form some sort of narrative and they go down that narrative, and it is horrible to see. It is horrible because they're misinforming the public. And in the case of, I've seen it now for two fights: Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin, and George Kambosos versus Maxie Hughes. Again, atrocious commentary. And I really do appreciate it. I can understand when the contender is live, maybe people assume that the contender would be blown out by the A side, and that didn't happen. But it's another thing when you're creating these narratives and they're not true at all. They're not symbolic of what is happening in that ring. And I saw it for both cases, and it really annoyed me. On Showtime, I didn't see the commentary team particularly speaking adversely concerning the Rolly Romero fight. All of the talk about the old guy beating Rolly Romero and all of these things, and the fight prematurely being stopped and all of this, even though the fight was prematurely stopped, it wasn't because of the commentary team. Okay, in that case, it was because people just don't like Rolly Romero. But when Devin Haney was fighting Vasily Lomachenko, we saw it again with this ESPN commentary team. So one thing about ESPN I do not like and I do not appreciate is how they create these narratives, especially if you have a close fight or a very competitive fight. These commentary teams pick a certain fighter and they stay with that fighter, and it's really ridiculous. They're not covering what is actually happening. And when The other fighter is landing shots and doing a lot of effective things. They're busy talking about the opposite fighter. They're not paying attention to both fighters. And that, for me, is poor journalism. Um, the Zone does it sometimes. Chris Algieri it's actually, I applaud Chris Algieri, because Chris Algieri, even though he's working for Top Rank, ESPN, whoever he's working for, you can see that Chris Algieri is focused on the boxing aspect, even though he may be drowned out by somebody else. Andre Ward tried to keep it what it should be, watching a boxing fight, even though I've seen his bias every now and then. Maybe he picked a side or whatever. But it's ridiculous what Timothy Bradley's doing, what Mike Kriegel's doing, what that other guy Tessitore is doing. They do a atrocious job of covering fights, because their bias is shown, which fighter they picked, which fighter they're talking about. And sometimes, I don't know if they're deliberately trying to misinform the public, but they are speaking things about boxing, fundamental things about boxing, which are not true at all. They're not true at all. So I had to cover this topic because, the Bible says when people tell lies about you, when they're attacking you for no reason but the good you're doing, I experience it all the time. Do not worry. Be happy, because great is your reward. Your reward is coming. Okay. And I think that George Kambosos did a great job. He knows, and his trainer and everybody, that he won the fight. And it was by 8-4, 9-3. I did have the scorecard exactly like one of the judges had it. Another judge had it a little closer. Maybe he gave Maxie Hughes a round or two. They were swing rounds early on. But to say in any way, shape, or form that Maxie Hughes won that fight, he was competitive, no doubt about it. The fight was competitive for 8 rounds. To say that this guy won the fight is ridiculous. It's becoming ridiculous in boxing. And when ESPN, it's always ESPN. It reminds me again, over and over, I say it again and again. They did an atrocious job of Mayweather versus Jose Luis Castillo 1. Atrocious job. Okay? Atrocious job. And it's that same formula they're using to create controversy against certain fighters. I don't know. They have an issue with George Kambosos because he signed with Top Rank. They obviously have an issue with Devin Haney, and they try to villainize him. Okay? But I really, and of course, George Kambosos supported Devin Haney when Devin Haney won the fight. So I don't know if they're trying to go at George Kambosos and they're trying to ruin the guy's career, because these commentary teams, they're wrecking people's careers. They're hurting people's careers by making up fallacious, false notions, such that Ellie Seckbach has munition to say George Kambosos, he's not that good, elite fighter. Guess what? Maxie Hughes was actually an elite fighter. He was actually better than a lot of people can give him credit for. Artur Harutunian was a better fighter than a lot of people give him credit for. Sandor Martin, these are all European fighters, is a better fighter than people give him credit for. What do all 3 fighters have in common? They're counterpuncher boxers. It's a difficult style. It has nothing to do with race. When you sit back and you counterpunch another fighter who has to make the fight and make it close the distance on you, especially all of them had reach advantages over the other guys. You have to be smart. Now, what I saw, and if I'm not mistaken, 2 of them were southpaws, if not all 3 of them. No, 2 of them. 2 of them. I can't remember. I think Frank Martin was an orthodox, and I think Artur Harutunian was a southpaw. They all gave these fighters problems. Why? Because of the style that they employed. Okay? Why do I have to educate people on boxing? Why is it you people can't see these things? Why are you letting media influence you and control you? And control the narrative? Are you that stupid? Are you that stupid? I don't care if you want to see a boxer fall. You have to speak the truth, not lies. And a lot of y'all are full of shit out here. I'm be real. Full of shit. Okay? So the ESPN commentary team, were full of shit. They couldn't realize that George Kambosos was doing the same thing Teofimo Lopez was doing. That's how Kambosos handles southpaw. It's the same strategy. It's the same technique as Teofimo Lopez when he's fighting southpaws. And Teofimo Lopez demonstrated the same thing against Josh Taylor. Same technique. Same thing he did against Lomachenko. It's the same thing George Kambosos is now employing against southpaws. That's why Kambosos says I can handle southpaws. Even if he had a reach disadvantage against a longer, bigger fighter. Y'all don't know shit about boxing. Y'all don't know shit about boxing. And Timothy Bradley was talking a lot of shit. Talking about, oh, he's circling the wrong way. No, you don't know about that. You ain't smart enough to know about that. You don't know that it's about distance control. It's not about which way you circle. Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Floyd Mayweather versus Robert Guerrero. Floyd Mayweather versus Victor Ortiz. Floyd Mayweather versus Zab Judah. He circled the same way as George Kambosos. Boxing. The fuck is wrong with you people? Y'all don't know shit about boxing. So, I needed to do that because I know the people in the boxing world watch my channel, and I know the people in the boxing world listen to what I say because they know I don't. You can't bullshit me. You can't fucking bullshit me. And they come to my channel and they listen to me because even though I don't seem to get a lot of views, a lot of people come through and watch my channel because I'm one of those fans you can't fucking bullshit me on. You can't bullshit me. I'm not going to go with the narrative of every asshole out there and the little gossip rumors you perpetrate and the false information you give. No. This ninja sees through your bullshit. Back to what I was saying. So, I break down what I say. I don't just talk out my ass. I break down what's actually going on in that ring. And I want to cover Stephen Fulton versus Naoya Inoue tomorrow morning, somewhere around 5 or 8 o'clock, whenever it is. I want to cover it. I want to actually do a commentary on it so you guys can understand what Fulton's doing in there, what Inoue's doing in there. And that is why I want to cover Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, possible things they do as they approach this fight. Because what you need, if there's one thing about what you need, you might curse and swear, you might do all kinds of things sometimes, you might even yell, it's because he's pissed. He's pissed at the bullshit out here. And y'all just lap it up like assholes. Y'all don't think for yourself. Y'all are all fucking sheep. You can't watch a fight and figure out what's going on in that fight because you don't know what the fuck you're watching. And it really pisses me off. After all these years, you fucking fans don't know what the fuck you watching. And it pisses me off. Because my channel is here to educate. So George Kambosos, he getting dragged in the mud. He can't box. And George Kambosos was boxing his ass off. He outboxed Maxie Hughes for the last 4 rounds. And y'all can't even see that shit. Y'all don't even know what the fuck just happened. And that's what pisses me off. Y'all go with narrators. Y'all follow what the commentator says. If the commentator be talking shit, mute the motherfucker. Mute them. Turn it off. Don't watch that shit. Mute them and watch with your eyes and see what's going on. Who's really hitting whom? Who's really getting their shots in? Who's really controlling the round? If it's an ebb and flow, you give the round to the aggressor. If you can't figure out who's winning the round, it's the aggressor you have to give it to. So simple, but y'all so fucking stupid. Kambosos was pressing them fight the whole fucking fight. All those close rounds. Think about what I'm saying, because y'all don't think. Y'all just talk. All those rounds where they were close should have gone to George Kambosos because motherfucker, he was pressing the fight. So if a round is close and that guy is an aggressor and he's being effective because he's landing shit in the trades, then the guy who's making a fucking fight gets the fucking round. How is this hard to understand? So how the fuck did Maxie Hughes win that fight? I'm just using common sense here. The fight was close. Nobody's saying no for 8 rounds. Tell me what the fuck did Maxie Hughes land from rounds 9 to 12 on Kambosos? Tell me, really, seriously, tell me. Go and watch the fight again if you have to. Use your brain. God gave you eyes. Use them. You won't be able to hear the thudding sound of the punches because you have to mute everything. But at least let the commentary teams get out of you between your 2 fucking ears because they are swaying your opinion of what you're seeing. Mute them. Mute them. And watch the fight. I'm going to say that again. For all you fans out there, you say you fans, the casual fans, I expect them not to understand what the hell they watch. But the fans who are supposed to be hardcore fans, I heard, that's the boxing voice, I heard a fan calling. And this fan said something so stupid and so clueless. I was like, what? What the hell is this guy talking about? Guy called it, and you know he didn't watch the fight. And he said, Kambosos versus Maxie Hughes, that the fight should go, if the champion is in the fight there, the champion should get the benefit of the doubt. Then he turns around and says, that's why Maxie Hughes didn't win the fight, because, you know, Kambosos is the champion. And we're watching, I'm confused. Ness is confused. You know, what the other guy's name, I forgot his name, not Benny, whatever his name is, right? He's confused. So Ness is like, well, what are you talking about? So Ness asked him the question, which is a sensible question. So who do you think was the champion in that match? And the guy's like, well, you know, Kambosos. And he was like, no, Kambosos is not the champion. He got beat by Devin Haney twice. He's not a unified champion anymore. The IBO champion, which nobody was talking about the IBO belt, the IBO champion in that fight was Maxie Hughes. Right? So again, all this thing about, you know, you have to beat the champion, all of that's bullshit. Yeah, all of that's bullshit. Champion don't get no benefit or no doubt in boxing. Boxing is won round by round. It's not about whether the guy's a champion. So what are you saying? I beat a guy 7 rounds to 5. It's a close fight. I beat the guy, the judges gave me 7 rounds, right? The guy got 5 rounds because he's a fucking champion. I didn't beat him. They now have to go look to see, okay, this guy's the champion. They look at all the rounds there, and now they change up the rounds and they change up the scorecards because the guy was a champion. That's not how boxing works. Not the 10-point system. Boxing's won by rounds won, by points accumulated from rounds won. And if okay, for example, uh, well, one guy he wins more rounds, and then this is the case with Marquez versus Pacquiao. I think it was the second fight, one of them. I can't remember. First fight, I think it was the first fight, right? Pacquiao drops Marquez 3 times in 1 round. Okay, Marquez comes back and wins more rounds than Pacquiao, but it ends up being a draw. The reason being because Pacquiao gets like a 10-8 round, a 10-7 round because he dropped Marquez 3 times. Because see, boxing's a 10-point must. It's the 10-point must system. It's not about necessarily how many rounds you won. You could win more rounds than another guy and end up losing the fight because the other guy dropped you multiple times in multiple rounds, right? It's about points. It's a point system. In the amateurs, it's a point system too, but it's a little different. It's a different point system. In the pros, it's a point system. So you could win more rounds and still draw with somebody, or win more rounds and lose a fight, because it's about points, and points are awarded based on, the effectiveness of a punch. If I've dropped a guy 3 times in a round, not only did I win that round, but I won that round handily. I win that round with a 3-point advantage over the other guy. So this is what makes boxing in the pros different to the amateurs, because you're awarded points for power, for effectiveness. If I'm more effective than you, that is, I dropped you 3 times in a round, never mind you was outboxing me that whole round, I win the round. That's what makes pros different to the amateurs. Okay? Right. So I wanted to go into all of that detail to say the ESPN commentary team, they were smoking some shit. Okay? Mark Kriegel had this guy way ahead of Kambosos when it was a neck-and-neck fight. You couldn't tell who won which round. Mark Kriegel should be fired from scoring any round. What the fuck is he doing scoring rounds? Why do we have somebody like a Harold Letterman? Why don't we have somebody who actually bursts in scoring rounds? Who the fuck is Mark Kriegel? He's a cameraman. All right, he's a fucking cameraman. He don't even know what the fuck he watching. Okay? Why is this guy scoring rounds? Because ESPN can't get more style? You can't introduce somebody? You can't pay somebody else money? There's no reason. There's a reason why you've been firing all these people. It's because nobody be watching your shit. Nobody's watching your app. Nobody's watching your shit. The app is so difficult to get onto and to use. Okay, anyways, poor journalism. The ESPN commentary is the reason why people are saying that Maxie Hughes was robbed. It's bullshit. The judges got it right. I scored it 8-4. Now y'all gonna watch this when you come off of your thing and oh yeah, you know what, yeah, Kambosos won the fight after I watched it again and blah 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 blah. Fuck out of here. Full of shit. That's what was wrong with you guys. Y'all don't know how to stand on the truth. Y'all don't know what to trust your eyes. You want to trust your ears than your eyes. Y'all full of shit. I can say that categorically. I can stand on that because I know what I scored. I know what I watched. But y'all don't know what y'all watched, and y'all don't know what you scored, and you can't break it down because y'all full of shit. Fuck y'all. Seriously. We're going into Spence versus Crawford. All right. What you need, he's straightforward, man. What you need, he give you what you need. You ain't like it. It's not what you want. It's what you need. And what you need, when nobody's saying this shit, what you need will say, because he's on a foundation. Because what you need, at least know some boxing. He know what he see. He know boxing like that. A lot of y'all don't know shit. I'm gonna be super real with y'all. Y'all don't know shit about what you watching. Fuck y'all. All right, Spence versus Crawford. Y'all must be like, what, you need just cussing our people and stuff. No, 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 no. The ridiculousness and the buffoonery has to end, man. You know, y'all want to be politically correct. Y'all want to just go with the crowd. Y'all can't think for yourself. Y'all can't say, well, you know what? Let me look at a second take of that. But no, this dude, because he could do a little boxing, Maxie Hughes, you know, he take a little step back. He a counter puncher. He not really a guy to lead. He just countering, you know, because of that. And he showed that he not just somebody you can blitz out of there. Y'all side with him, and then y'all just listening to the ESPN commentary team, and they going off of orgasms, you know, because the guy come to win. Of course he come to win. Of late, we've been seeing guys come to win. They're not coming to lay down no more. How many times have we seen that? Right? The competition stepping up to the plate. They're getting their opportunities and they're going for it. So they see them again. But this fucking bullshit about it was a robbery and blah, blah, blah. Fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. That sensational bullshit hurts the boxers' careers, man. Y'all going to the other extreme. Y'all going the other extreme. Now you hurting reputable boxers' reputation. You say you want to help the boxers on the come up with their opportunities, but then you go and you fuck up the situation by talking the other way, and you know you're talking out your ass because you didn't score shit. Most of y'all didn't score the fight to start with. All right. Further. I think of, you know, Pitbull Cruz versus Gervonta Tank Davis, and he gave Gervonta Tank Davis a good fight. Thought Davis won. Okay. Jack Catterall versus Josh Taylor. Catterall won that one. Yes, no doubt about it. There ain't no hype. There ain't no lie about that. Taylor came on strong down the stretch, but Catterall basically outboxed his ass, and Catterall knew it because he raised his hand at the end of the fight, and we all saw it. Okay, so that's one of several fights where I thought, okay, the underdog won. Fine. Okay. But y'all make it sound like this is the narrative out there. Y'all full of shit, man. Y'all need to really pay attention. We know Josh Taylor was weight drained. That's why what Josh Taylor won also. That's why Teofimo won over Josh Taylor as well. It was tactical. Josh Taylor was trying to do his thing, couldn't get going. But it's also because he was weight drained. He didn't have enough energy. And that's okay. Teofimo told him that. All right. We're gonna talk Spence versus Crawford. All right. And we're gonna try and give y'all some game on the game. Because a lot of y'all don't know what the fuck y'all is be watching. All right. So we're gonna talk a little bit about a game on the game. Because y'all don't know shit about what y'all watch. Y'all is fucking idiots, man. Fucking idiots. Y'all just go with a narrative. I'll never forget Triple G versus Canelo, the first fight. Canelo boxed his fucking ass off. That's because he didn't stop him. Don't mean he boxed his ass off, and y'all call that Triple G winning. Fuck out of here. Fuck out of here. No way Triple G won that first fight. And Adelaide Bird wasn't wrong, and y'all pushed the woman out of boxing. So fuck out of here. Y'all are full of shit. Y'all mess up people's reputations as well. Fuck y'all. Fuck y'all. Think I'm playing? Fuck y'all. Keep it moving. So, back to what I was saying, you know, because you have to know boxing, man. You have to know boxing. Can't be influenced by some fucking commentary team who got an orgasm over Triple G. Triple G, oh, he just threw a shot. Same fucking shit for Pacquiao. Y'all was throwing an orgasm. Jim Lampley throwing an orgasm when Pacquiao throw a certain shot because y'all like his style. Fuck out of here. Y'all full of shit. Full of shit. Crawford, Spence approach. Let's talk Spence versus Crawford. I don't even want to talk about the history of these two because, again, same bullshit. Y'all Y'all be praising up Crawford for stuff that he did not do. He didn't do that. But y'all give him praise for stuff. And that's what I don't like about the media. Y'all praise up and hype up a guy when y'all know goddamn well, because the media knows he ain't on the level of another guy. He ain't faced the competition the other guy had. Y'all know this. That's what happened with Pacquiao and Mayweather. Now, when Crawford and Spence, the reason why this is a pick 'em fight is because of Crawford's skills, abilities, and Spence skills and abilities. So I'm not going to try and pick this fight. Like I said before, I'm not picking this fight. All right. A lot of people coming out now and saying the same fucking narrative. I don't give a fuck. Y'all know very well this fight could go 100 million different ways. All right. But having said that, okay, this is a really good fight. There's no fucking way in hell, no way in hell Crawford's competition compares to Spence competition. It just doesn't compare. All right, so we're going to talk about, like I said before, Spence versus Crawford, right? We're not going to go back into the competition and everything. We're going to talk about the actual fight. Crawford's approach to the fight. Let's get into that. So, if you haven't paid attention, you should. In every single fight that Terrence Crawford has fought, Terrence Crawford starts off the fight from range because he has exceptionally long hands for a welterweight. He has 74 inches of reach. So Crawford's not going to fight you by going right into the deep pocket and trying to work his way into the pocket and then fight on in the inside. Okay? He started doing that when he switched up and he started fighting the kid in Scotland. I forgot what his name is right now. The kid in Scotland, he'll come to me. And he fought him on the inside. He bullied him and fought him on the inside. Now, he wasn't stopping nobody at lightweight because at the time he had to cut so much weight for lightweight. But the first guy he won a title off of in Scotland, I can't remember his name for nothing right now. I'm drawing a blank. I'm getting all kinds of names, but not that name. I'm not retrieving it at present. Nonetheless, that guy, he showed us his inside fighting skills. All right. He was bullying him against the ropes. It was really good. Good stuff. Terrence Crawford, though, generally starts fights from range because he has such long arms. He has a reach advantage. He uses it as a smart fighter. He throws looping shots, sometimes hooks from the outside. He whips around shots, even throws his combination. Even when he knocked down Sean Porter, he was fighting Sean Porter basically on the outside. Sean Porter had to close distance. And so Terrence Crawford makes you pay when you try to close distance on him. He racked it up like he did when he found out he was losing. You know, they were telling him he was losing the fight. He racked it up a bit, started throwing more combinations, trying to get Sean Porter out of there or drop him, you know, because he was kind of toying with Sean Porter and having a good time. And he thought he was in control of the fight because Sean Porter couldn't do what he was doing with Errol Spence. Unlike Errol Spence, who would not lock him up, as Sean Porter closed the distance, Terrence simply locked him up. All right. So I expect Terrence Crawford, and Sean Porter is a big dude, but Sean Porter was being pushed around by Terrence Crawford. You could tell his wrestling came into play, and he was physically strong. To me, he was sturdier than Sean Porter in that fight. So Sean Porter couldn't do as much as he wanted to. Sean Porter wanted to pivot around him, turn the scales and stuff, but Terrence would clinch him. And again, because of those long arms, he could wrap you in there, and also he could pick you off from the outside. You know, throw his hooks and combinations, everything from the outside. In fact, how he knocked down Sean Porter, both times he was on the outside. Sean Porter had to close distance to get to him. And Sean Porter was trying to dip under the shots, but by then Terrence Crawford had read Sean Porter and understood his timing, knew when he was going to dip in and all of that. And he was able to have a good look at him because he's so far on the outside. And I do believe this is the same thing Terrence Crawford will try to do with Errol Spence. Errol has a shorter reach than him, even though Errol is taller. And Terrence Crawford is going to try to pick Errol Spence off from the outside. It doesn't mean that he's going to try to run away from Errol Spence. No, he's going to stay at a range where he can hit Errol Spence. Errol Spence can't hit him. Errol Spence will have to deal with that reach advantage that Terrence Crawford has, and the looping shots he will use to loop around Errol Spence's guard, his two guard, because Errol Spence likes to keep that guard up. So Crawford knows he's going to have to pick him. So what you do is you kind of throw a probing jab. You keep on throwing a probing jab, and then you loop. I'm a southpaw. You loop the hook around You loop the hook around it. You've seen Floyd Mayweather do that with Canelo Alvarez, where you probe with the jab and come up the center. You come up the center, split the guard, come around and go around the guard, and that's what Crawford will be having to do with Errol Spence. Now that depends on neither Crawford nor Spence is going to try to stand directly in front of each other. They're going to try and cut in with different angles. That's why Crawford is going to, if Spence is somehow is able to establish the center ground, because Spence is going to come out and try and establish the center ground. The fight may begin in the center of the ring, and then it may widen where Spence is actually pursuing Crawford, and Crawford's going to look to counter him. That puts Crawford in an advantageous position as Arthur Haratunian, as Sandor Martin, as the most recent guy there, Maxie Hughes, because now they can sit back, take that one step back or take that two step back, probe with the jab, try to keep Errol Spence's hands at home, because you don't want Errol Spence to be offloading his jab early. You want to kind of keep his hands at home. So you want to try and, so it's going to be a battle of the jabs. Errol Spence is going to try and slap down Terrence Crawford's jab and go over him. And Crawford, in the same time, is trying to, keep Spence's hand at bay, not let him find range, because he doesn't want him finding range. So, like I said, disrupt. Crawford's going to be disrupting. He's going to do more of the boxing stuff, but that doesn't mean he's not aggressive. He'll look for the opportunities to light up Errol Spence, let him know, you can't just come in here. You're going to get some heat if you try to come in here. So he's going to be looking for that. He's also going to look to maybe slide to the inside, kind of wrap up Errol Spence when he can. That's going to be kind of hard because Errol Spence keeps his hands up, protects his body and head quite well. And when, when Terrence tries to slide in, like Tito Trinidad, like Winky Wright, when you try to clinch him up or lock him up, it's going to be a little bit of a problem because he's going to push you off with the elbows. So Spence is not, and he's so strong, kind of like Tito Trinidad and those guys, it might be hard for him to do that, to clinch up. So he mightn't be able to clinch up, but he might be able to do some other things. Because if Errol has a strategy or game plan to prevent him from clinching up, now the fight really begins, because now Terrence has to use other methods, which he has. So as a boxer, Terrence Crawford, I think, is going to try and fight Errol Spence from the outside, throw his straight. The interesting thing about this is Errol doesn't really fight deep in the pocket, at least to begin with. He generally needs space himself, even though he can collapse those long arms and really throw those short chopping shots on the inside. That's more later on in the fight, right? But Errol also is measured. He likes to try and touch you. He wants to get that jab in. Once he can get the jab in, he knows the rest is going to be easy. And Terrence has to deny him as long as possible getting that jab in. How Terrence will start off the fight doesn't really matter. Whether he starts off orthodox, whether he starts off southpaw, does not matter. I'm going to explain to you why. Because, yes, okay, you using different hands and a different stance, you have a different lead, but the goal is the same. And the only difference is you're changing up the angle a little bit. But the goal is the same. Occupy, keep him at bay, don't let him find his target, and you pick him off. So make sure you're in the range where you can hit him and he can't hit you. So you want to kind of have that. That's what Terrence is going to try and do. He's going to try and exploit his reach advantage early on in the fight and try to make sure that Spence doesn't get to his body, particularly early in the fight. If Spence closes the distance, pull him in, lock him up. If you can. Now, like I said before, Errol's not that kind of dude you can just lock up like that. You haven't seen a lot of fighters try to lock him up. Not even Sean Porter could lock him up. And Sean Porter was looking to lock him up at certain points. But it was a good, grueling fight with Sean Porter. So, you want to try and lock him up when you can get an opportunity, when he's, slightly out of position. Errol is going to be slower than Crawford. Crawford's going to be quicker than Errol. So you're going to use that quickness, that speed advantage to get into position quicker. The problem with that is Errol does pivot, and he pivots very well and very sharply. So he can still pivot into position to be there with you. The other thing with Crawford should not stand, period, unless you're out of range. Okay, shouldn't be standing. He should keep his feet moving, stepping around, always looking to step around, never be directly in front of your opponent. Errol Spence is the same thing, though. Errol Spence is never directly in front of his opponent. He's always sidestepping, trying to go weak side. He's always trying to get a point of entry and then jab through it. Instead of feinting to come through, he jabs through. Sometimes he mixes up feints with his jab. Errol will have to do the same thing. I'm sorry, Terrence will have to do the same thing, mix up his feints with his jabs. He may be the guy that's circling. He may be the guy on the back foot initially, watching to see what's happening. Or he may be the guy in the center of the ring. It depends on how he decides to execute his pivots, how he decides to, if Errol does throw a jab, if he's going to dip under the jab, roll out, land some combinations on the weak side or whatever. So we'll see what Terrence has in store. If he was going to engage Errol one time, stay in the center of the ring, make Errol have to be sharp on all counts. He may walk to Errol. He might push Errol back. You never know. But I do think whatever he's going to do, he's going to do it behind his reach. He's going to keep his reach advantage. He has a 2-inch reach advantage on Errol. You need to use that. And Terrence is very good with looping shots. So his power doesn't really come from short chopping shots. Like Errol, his power actually is generated from looping his shots. That's why sometimes he don't check hook. He don't check hook like this. He extends his hook first. You can't see it here. He extends the hook and then he comes in. Okay. So, or he may loop as if he's hooking. He loops from outside and then he may straighten it up and throw a jab. So his power is actually generated from much looping shots. So his power comes from extension. That's where Terrence's power really comes from. You don't really see him putting down guys with short chopping shots. Errol, on the other hand, he has short chopping shots. He collapses those long arms and he gives you short chopping, ripping shots. So Errol is actually the one that needs to close the distance more than Terrence when he wants to go to work on the body. Errol, though, he does shoot straight shots. And so Terrence Crawford, to offset those straight shots, he'll have to slip one way or the other, block and parry, basically slap it down, go over the top. And, you know, Terrence will also have to just get Errol's timing. Terrence's timing is actually, like I said before, he has an irregular rhythm. He does a little jig thing and all of that. And he's going to be the guy that's lighter on his feet, I do believe. Errol's going to be more planted, wanting to get more power, more pop. So even though Errol's also going to be equally quick, and his pivot work is the thing that's going to make a difference, which is why Terrence is not just going to be able to go to weak side just so on Errol. But having said all of that, you know, I think that what Sean Porter did with Errol is something that Terrence Crawford and his team probably looked at and they said, we can better that. So I think they're not going to expend as much energy. I think they're going to be more tactical, but the same approach of attacking Errol on weak side, trying to get to him before he can pivot into position, get him out of position that way, turning him, I think is what their major approach is going to be. And they're going to try and do a Mayweather-like performance on Errol Spence. This is what I think. That's why Terrence is going for speed and quickness over power. Even though he's still got good power, good pop, I'm sure he could put down people. I'm pretty sure he can put down Spence if he catches him right. But I do think initially this is what he's going to be doing. Because Spence is going to be so alert, aware, and dialed in, both guys going to be dialed in. I don't think that Crawford's going to catch Spence like how he did Kell Brook and all those other guys. And Spence even said that. Now, the other thing that y'all have to understand is if Crawford can get Spence close enough to him in clinches and stuff, Crawford needs to make Spence work to come out of clinches and that kind of stuff. So he has to sometimes, you know, because Crawford knows a little bit of wrestling, he should try and twist Spence's arm on the inside as well. You know, take some of the strength out of his arm, twist the joint if he can, because he knows wrestling. He knows how to clinch and stuff. And Spence, he better know how to undo that, because those are little clever veteran moves, how you tweak an arm, how you twist an arm, so it kind of hurts the boxer a little bit if the boxer's not well toned or whatever, you know. And you know joints and stuff, you know how to do that in clinches. Timothy Brad was talking about Crawford going to the body. The shot you're going to look for with Crawford going to the body is the straight left or the straight right to the solar plexus. He's going to try and get that from a distance. He's going to try and buddy punch from a distance. If he's throwing looping shots, he's going to try and throw them off an angle, and he's going to try and throw them from the outside. So when Terrence is hooking, he actually can hook from the outside. Errol has to get inside of those shots and cramp Terrence for space, so he can't get those looping shots off, and then rip those short chopping shots on the inside. That's what Errol will need to do, and that's where Errol can win the fight. Now, with respect to Crawford and his game plan and strategy, it depends on what Errol Spence brings to the table from then on in. If Errol can't get past Terrence Crawford's looping long range shots, and Terrence can keep him on the outside, whether it's using the backhand to light him up a little bit as he's closing the distance, or whether it's you dip under a shot as Errol's closing in off the jab, and land a shot on him, pull counter him, whatever. He's gonna look a little bit pretty, disrupt him, not really trying to. Initially, these guys are not looking to really light each other up. They're looking to touch each other. They're looking for ways to get to each other's body and heads. So Crawford initially is going to see, he's going to be probing to see what he can land on Errol Spence. Once he gets his jab in, the game is over. So that's the whole point behind these guys and how they fight. Hold on one second. What you need is about to just take a break. I'll be right back with you guys in a minute. Okay, what you need back in the building. So Crawford's going to be making Errol Spence have to close that particular distance. It's going to be a battle of range. Initially, these both guys are going to be trying just to see if they can touch each other. So in the early rounds, they're getting out there and they're looking to see if they can land their jabs, their lead hand, their forward hand. If they can land their backhand, it's even better. That means, because the fight's really won or lost if I can get to you. And because of that reach advantage that Terrence has, which Floyd Mayweather had over a lot of his opponents, not all of them, but a lot of them, that is what Terrence is going to be using. Now, the thing is, Errol, and this is why this is a 50-50 fight, okay? We talk about the battle of the jabs all the time, right? We talk about, guys closing distance. But just because a guy has a longer reach than you, as we saw with Kambosos versus Maxie Hughes, doesn't mean necessarily that automatically means you can't do anything, right? And that's what a lot of people don't understand. So Terrence is going to try to occupy Errol Spence. He's going to try to light him up if he tries to come and close the distance. He's going to try to use his jab to get to Errol Spence. And then he'll use hooks off the jab and other combination punches once he can establish range. But that's the thing, right? Now, later on in the fight, as Terrence realizes what Spence's rhythm is like, what Spence's flow is like, Terrence is going to do other things, as you saw in the workout. Whether it is he will dip under Spence's hooks, because you see he does a number of drills where he's dealing with Spence's hooks and how he reacts to Spence's hooks, because Spence throws a lot of hooks. So Crawford has counters for those hooks. When Spence starts to throw hooks to the body, it means Spence's head is going to be exposed, right? So that's where Crawford can come through with, Now, Timothy Bradley was talking about, and I'm getting more specific, right? Timothy Bradley was talking about, how Crawford has to punch with Spence. And I believe also Sean Porter said the same thing. When Spence is punching, that's when Crawford should punch. That's when he does the best. That is not the complete picture. So I want to just give you the complete picture. Crawford and what he was doing in the drills, because you can't do this with Spence. Spence is a different kind of breed, right? Spence can take a punch, and Spence knows how to ride punches. He knows how to move his head like Canelo and ride punches. So he can still keep on doing what he's doing. Spence remind me a little bit of a welterweight Triple G with better defense, right? So just trying to throw a hook and knock out Spence, you know what? This is kind of like, it's like Canelo versus Triple G in a way, because Crawford's coming up in weight. Yes, he's acclimatized to welterweight, but he's not the bigger guy. He's not the true welterweight. Okay. So for him to beat Spence, he's going to have to outthink Spence somewhat. He's going to have to be the one in control somewhat. I'm not saying he's going to be in control all through the fight. That's not going to happen. But he should at least be able to establish certain things from the beginning, from round one. Okay. So people are talking about, Crawford hitting Errol Spence with something that Errol Spence doesn't see and get him out. Listen, that's a hope and a prayer. That's called having a puncher's chance. Boxing don't work that way. These guys are not cool. If Crawford's going to set up Spence for something, he's going to set him up for something. That's what he's going to look to see if he can set him up for something, right? But initially in the opening rounds, all these guys want to know is, how do you react to something I do? So I may feint something, or I may throw something to see what you react. So they're looking, that's how boxing works. I'm dialed into you and I want to see what you do. I want to see how you react. I want to see if what I trained for, if it will work on you. So it's those kinds of things that are going on in the early rounds. Of course, it's not as cerebral as that. They're not thinking all those thoughts. They're just going through the motions. But the point is, that is what is happening. Okay? It's basically, I'm checking you out to see what you bring to the table. What do you do here? What do you do there? They don't be thinking about that. That's what's happening while they're fighting. Now, the thing about it is that they're going to be they call it the feel out round, where they're feeling out each other to see what's going on. The thing about it is, with Crawford is not your textbook correct punching fighter, and even your textbook correct stance, or even your textbook correct movement, right? Crawford's kind of like imprecise about different things, but somehow he still hits the mark. Because Crawford focuses on his target, he's able to hit the mark. He's not even your best defensive fighter. There were certain times when Crawford was hard to get in touch, but the competition he was facing wasn't really competition that had the abilities to make him pay for what he was doing, right? Porter did it a bit. Kell Brook did it a bit early on, but Crawford was telegraphing. He was telling you what he was going to do with Kell Brook. He threw that right hook a number of times, right? In the southpaw stance, Kell Brook was having a little bit more problems getting the distance. Crawford started making adjustments to him in terms of distance and reach, because he had reach advantage. So why not use the reach advantage? And he would snap back, and he was throwing that right hook, but he was missing a lot of times, which shows me he's not the most precise guy, but Crawford's plastic, and he's honing on his target, and he's trying to land on his target while trying to keep some defense in play. So Crawford's what we call, he's an anomaly in the sense that he doesn't do everything crisp, sharp, and perfect. He gives you a chimera. He gives you a mixture of, so for example, where he threw that hook jab on Kell Brook, which was really a check hook he was trying to do, but he didn't precisely do it. But instinctively, he got to the target. Is not Errol Spence, right? Errol Spence is very precise. He's like Errol Spence said, he has more skills, honed skills, than Terrence Crawford, in that he's well schooled, right? Crawford is instinctual. He's well schooled too, but he does not, in fights, he does not apply that schooling in a precise, specific way like Errol Spence does. Errol Spence is very sharp. He's well schooled. He's very precise. about what he's doing. Crawford is precise too, but he's more rubbery. That is to say, he he doesn't throw everything textbook correct, and you don't have to throw everything textbook correct. I mean, the old greats didn't throw things textbook correct, you know, and so he's kind of old school in that respect, like he's rubbery. So because of that, sometimes his punches may come at a sort of unorthodox way, and that may be something that Spence has to. If Spence is being aware and alert, it's not going to be a problem, right? He's not going to get caught with the full brunt of the punch. He's going to have to adjust to Terrence Crawford's speed. Terrence Crawford's got that quickness advantage over Spence, even though Terrence Crawford is not the quickest guy in the world, but he has a quickness advantage over Errol Spence. So Errol Spence will have to get accustomed to that. But we're not talking about Errol Spence right now. So Crawford could use his quickness. He could use his nimbleness, his lightness on his feet. He's much lighter on his feet right now than Errol Spence is, from what I saw in the workouts. Now, I'm just going by what I saw in the workouts. Errol Spence, in general, you know, he has quick feet. Sometimes he's flat-footed, sometimes he's not. Of course, you have to be flat-footed to generate the power. So Crawford has those sort of advantages. The other thing I need to mention about Terrence Crawford, as the fight progresses, as Terrence Crawford adjusts to what Errol Spence is doing, and he will, you will see Terrence Crawford now. You'll see him looking for ways to continue to break down Errol Spence. Errol Spence protects his body pretty well, all right? But he can get caught in trades. So look for Terrence Crawford to try and catch him with a left hook to the liver. Look for Terrence Crawford to try to catch Errol Spence. Errol Spence is defensively aware, but nonetheless, look for Terrence Crawford, particularly to catch him with a right hook. He was going to try and throw a right hook to Errol Spence's head, because Dennis Ugas was able to do that. When Errol Spence is ripping body shots, he can get countered with a right hook to the head. And at some point, Terrence Crawford is going to notice that. And Spence is going to have to keep his guard up once he's throwing hooks to Terrence Crawford's liver, particularly. So Terrence Crawford, I think, is going to be looking now to pick spots and so on. Once he's not ever going to be comfortable in this fight. It's going to be an ebb and flow, but he's going to be making adjustments, and Errol's going to be bringing the pressure more than likely. He's going to be the guy that's the pressure fighter in this fight, pressing the action on the boxer. So it's perfect sort of pressure fighter boxer thing, but both guys are boxers, so he's not just pressure, but intelligent pressure. Once Spence gets to going, at some point in the fight, Crawford's going to catch him. Okay, I can guarantee you that Crawford's going to catch him with something. And we'll see how Errol Spence reacts to that. And then what does Errol Spence do? Does he just continue doing what he's doing? So Crawford, another thing. So the thing about Crawford is he can't show his hand all the way through the fight. He has to, and the other thing that Crawford needs to look out for is, you can't be trying to outblaze Errol Spence. That just don't make no sense. Treat this guy like how you treat Jose Benavidez. Even more so because this guy, Errol Spence, he has power on the end of his punches, and he also has power when he shortens up his punches. So be very careful not to just go into all-out brawl and be throwing combinations like that, unless you're switching gears or something and you decide to pick your spots where you want to do that. Just like what he did with Jose Benavidez. So his approach needs to be more like what he had with Jose Benavidez, where he's not getting touched much at all. He's always making Errol Spence fall short and countering him. He needs to, and it doesn't matter if he's moving backwards or forwards. He has to maintain that particular range and gap. That's the ideal situation. Obviously, Errol Spence is going to close the gap at certain times. And just like with Sean Porter, he needs to be able to control that. So once he can control how much Errol Spence closes the gap on him, he's going to be all right. And this is his fight to win, no matter how close it is. What is Errol Spence's approach? We kind of highlighted. It's a basic approach, but yet it's not basic. So the things what Errol Spence does very well, and he does in almost every single fight, is he starts off with his jab. So there's going to be a battle of the jabs, and Errol Spence's job is simple. He has to double up the jab sometimes. He has to slap over Crawford's. He has to go over Crawford's jab and slap it down, or sometimes just occupy Crawford's jabbing hand or blind him and then throw straight lefts to the body or straight lefts to the head. As he does, he'll occupy Crawford and then start throwing his punches. That's what Errol Spence does. He also changes levels. I mean, you saw Crawford also working on drills for Errol Spence, changing levels on him. But the thing that Crawford may need to look at more is not Spence's hands, it's his feet, where his foot positioning is. So Crawford needs to cut off those angles when Spence is coming at him. He needs to lock down those angles. So Spence has to come straight at him, in which case Spence will have to abort, think about it. So remember, pivot work is everything for Crawford. And that's why he has nimble feet, because he must be able to face Spence. Spence is not going to go straight down the center. He's too smart for that. He may try. Actually, he may try, because he may try to bully him early and go straight down the center, and we'll see what happens with that. But Crawford needs to make sure he takes away those angles, circles out, so Spence can't come down, so maintain range. So Crawford needs to circle out when Spence is coming down at an angle, trying to go weak side. He has to circle out. So can Crawford outbox Spence? Absolutely, he could control that situation. But Spence, being aware of that, would probably sidestep him and start to try to cut off the ring and then shut him down. So it's very interesting what can happen. So with Spence, he's staying behind the jab. The idea is to stay behind your jab. If you need to double it up, triple it up, feint as if you're coming in, and then don't come in, using some feints to come in off the jab even. So you're doing like you're going to jab and come in, but you're not coming in. You're just jabbing, like Floyd Mayweather does, feinting like he's going to jab inside, and then he jabs, instead of jabbing up high, jabs down low, varying the jab. So, Errol does a lot of different things with his jab. Terrence can do the same, but he just never had the opportunity, and he had the opponent to do such. So it should be that's why I said this is a very interesting fight, because Errol, while he's fundamentally sound and very sharp with it, he can do many, 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 many different things. And we haven't even seen Errol really box off the back foot a number of times. Again, Errol has a nice long jab as well. Sometimes he throws with power, sometimes he doesn't. He uses the jab to set up the left hand. He works his left hand off his jab. He can pull counter. He can do everything. He can also counter punch like Terrence Crawford. He can also box like Terrence Crawford. But he keeps everything simple and precise and economical. It's very economical. So Errol working off the jab, coming in on Terrence Crawford instead of feinting him and coming in. He can mix feints with the jab. That'll make him less predictable, because it's all about being as unpredictable as possible in boxing. But I think Errol's going to just pump that jab early and try and get the jab in. He's going to try and reach Crawford either with the jab or with the left, one of them. And once he gets that left in or the jab into Crawford's body, he's going to work. And he's going to keep his defensively aware, and he's going to see where what Crawford brings to the table and what he'll need to do from there. So I think that's the way Errol's going to do it. Errol's going to probably try and bully Crawford early, I believe. He's going to try and close down that distance as quickly as possible and see what Crawford's got, how much power he has. Want to feel the power of Crawford's gloves on his arms. Errol's very big. He looks very strong. He looks like almost a 168 pounder. So it should be interesting what happens when he makes weight and after he makes weight, how fit he is, and so on. Down the stretch, I expect Errol to close down the distance more on Crawford. As I said before, inside of Crawford's shots. The closer Errol is to Crawford, the more he will smother Crawford. I think his goal would be to smother Crawford's shots while working his shots on the inside. Crawford needs to tie him up in a way, depending on how well trained Errol is. He could tie up Crawford while working him on the inside, so they can be tied up and working each other. So we might see some inside fighting from Crawford. We haven't seen Crawford inside fight in a while. So we might see inside fighting by both of them to see if they're equally up to the task. I believe both of them are tough as hell. But Errol's approach is that he's going to probably be the pressure fighter for most of the fight, um, which lends it could favor him, especially if they're trading a lot and um, we can't really tell who's winning the round. It will be the aggressor who's winning the round, so that would favor Errol. So that's why Errol's style and everything kind of favors him. Now, if Crawford can, like I said, make him pay for cutting down the distance, and not only make him pay, but also, you know, make him respect the pop that he has. I think it gets a little bit more complicated, but not really. Errol just use more defense, I think, roll more punches. Maybe even Crawford may push him back, and when Crawford's pushing back, look to go weak side on him, and Errol will have to circle out, and Errol will have to be doing the boxing. So who knows? Maybe Crawford be the guy walking down Errol. You never know. But at the end of the day, I think that Spence's approach would be to pressure Crawford. He's going to do that initially. Whether he does that for the rest of the fight is another story. He may change it up, and he may be boxing Crawford, and that would be an interesting thing to see. What I would say again, the key thing to this fight is the footwork. Both guys will not want to take too much damage to their bodies, which means they're going to, and it's going to be a grueling fight anyway. Once the fight gets going and they're really deep into their trades and deep into their attacks and stuff, now I think it's going to come down to, they say who's the smarter fighter, yes, but I think ultimately in the end, if Crawford has to be fighting all the time, which I don't think he will, I think he should have enough power to make Errol Spence respect him somewhat. The thing about it is Errol, I'm not saying Errol's going to try and steamroll him all the way. I'm not saying Errol's not going to take breaks or ease him off at certain points, but I do think that this is going to be a much more heated fight. But both guys, I think, can do more or less roundabout the same things in different ways. When Crawford, say for example, when Crawford tries to establish, and this is why this fight's so hard. When Crawford, even though Crawford has reach advantage, like I said before, Crawford tends to get his power off the end of his punches. He has it generated, right? Whereas with Errol Spence, if Errol Spence double jabs and slips to the inside of Crawford's defense, this is where Crawford has to clinch him. But if Errol frames it, that is, he uses his forearm and frames Crawford, this is where he can body check him, and then he can start landing his body punches. So there's all these little, like I said before, Errol can throw a jab, for example. Okay, so let me explain something to you guys. So for example, if I throw a jab at you, let's say I miss, I can still frame you like this and keep you over here. All right. So I'm a southpaw. So when I throw my jab at you, right, you may slip to the outside here, but guess what? As you're about to throw your punch up the center, I can throw you off balance by pushing you off. I can frame you off. You understand what I'm saying? And that's the little trick to getting guys not to throw certain punches. You throw them off balance, now they're off balance, and once they're off balance, they can't throw the punch they really want. It delays them for a second for you now to either roll under their hook or under their shot or brace for their shot. So, and that's what Triple G used to do as well. So if I frame you off like this and then I come this way, I can protect myself from a shot up the center. So you could slip, if you slip off to the side of me, I framed you, so I pushed you back a little bit more, and I can just pivot with you, and then I can block here. See what I'm saying? So if you understand what I'm saying, you know what I mean? But like I said, boxing's a sport you have to understand. If you don't understand what's going on, then anyway, so for every move, there's a counter move. For every like a yin and yang, for every strategy, there's a counter strategy. All right, to neutralize it. And then you will have to launch your thing. In boxing, I think more than anything else, if you're a quick fighter, it's unpredictability you want to work with. If you're a powerful fighter, it's about the opportunities, because even if this guy's unpredictable and catches me with a shot, once I'm defensively aware, even if I get hit or not, I'm defensively aware, I can pick up the shot and then I can adjust the suit. For me, if I'm strong and powerful, I want to use my strength and power to my advantage, like how Mika Cotto pick up Floyd Mayweather and slam him. Errol Spence would have to body Terrence Crawford He had to physically body him. Now, Terrence Crawford's a wrestler, so he know how to distribute his weight and maybe even flip Errol Spence and drop him. But Errol Spence need to body Terrence Crawford. And how you body a guy, you don't have to go body to body. You frame them. Got it? So you frame a guy and then you get him in position. You can body check him as well, and then you can run your shots up the center or whatever. So that's why I said boxing is a very advanced sport. It's not about power. A lot of people get obsessed with power. That's why I'm going to explain to you guys now about. So let me go to this first before I go to Stephen Fulton versus Naoya Inoue, so you guys can understand a little bit more about what I'm talking about, right? And that's why I said, if you're a big fighter, if you have size on a guy and you have strength on a guy, you have to use that size. You have to use that strength. Okay? You have to use your size. You have to use your strength. It's not just about using your length and reach. In this case, Terrence Crawford's the longer fighter, so it all makes absolute sense as a smart fighter to use his length as an advantage. But Spence is the bigger fighter, so he has to use his physical weight, his physical size to his advantage. The fact that he's stronger, he has to, if he is stronger, we don't know if he's stronger, but if he is stronger, he has to use that strength to his advantage. You know what I mean? To move Terrence Crawford around the ring, to position him where he wants him to position him. And you don't have to do it through clinching. You can do it through many different methods. One of them I just spoke about is framing. You can frame a fighter and get him into the position you want. You can body check him. Okay, body checking so many different ways. You see, people only think of gloves for punching, right? But you can use your gloves to move a guy's hands, his defensive hands out the way. You know, you can push his hands out the way. You can push. You know, if he has a guard up, you can push the guard out the way. We've seen it with Amir Khan versus Louis Collazo. We've seen it with Manny Pacquiao versus Oscar De La Hoya. We've seen it with Floyd Mayweather versus Arturo Gatti. I'm just giving you 3 examples right there. All right. Like I said before, I know boxing. Like a lot of people don't know what the fuck they be watching. I'll be saying it over and over because I'll be pissed. Okay. So boxing is more than just fucking throwing blows and blocking punches, you know. And a lot of times these guys don't even know what the fighters are capable of. All right, so let's get this question. The question is Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford or Fulton Inoue, which is the better fight? Okay, so let me explain this to you guys like this. One fight, you tell me, you pick, okay? One fight, you got 2 veteran fighters who've experienced various experiences in boxing. They're very gifted. 2 veteran fighters who experienced various experiences in boxing. They know round about the same kind of tricks of the trade in boxing. And then you have another fight. They're 2 veteran fighters, yes, but one is significantly less experienced in the craft. Note the wording I'm saying, in the craft of boxing than the other. So one boxer, you know, he's been beating up people because he have pop, right? He got good pop, he's sharp, you know, he got good footwork, but he's not super duper crafty. He's learning the craft of boxing on the job. And the other guy, he don't got that kind of pop. He got good power, but he ain't got that kind of pop. But he's crafty as hell, and he's faced much stiffer competition than the other guy, which made him have to go through different gears, made him have to do different things. But the other guy, he's faced reputable names. He faced some of the best fighters in his division. They just didn't have that youth mindset and experience to really push him to have to use the craft of boxing in finer ways, because he'd been getting rid of them quickly, right? The only guy who stood up to him, and the guy was more straight up and down with good power and stuff, had 1 or 2 little crafty things he did, but realized, you know, this boy compared to me, I'm gonna walk this boy down, right? Yeah, because he had more man strength. Was a all-time great fighter, right? Now, you looking at the guy who knows the craft of boxing, and you looking at the guy who's learning the craft of boxing. Both of them are skilled boxers. Who are you gonna pick? Which fight is better? I argue the fight between the two veteran fighters who are all well-rounded, meaning they know the craft of boxing, they know the boxing itself. Them guys, highly skilled guys, one more skilled than the other, one more talented than the other. I pick that fight as the better fight because these both these guys, they got killer mentality, yeah, but both of them are knockout artists, but also they're crafty with it. They skill with it. So you get in every single level of fan can be entertained by that fight. And we know the fight's inevitably going to be a barn burner. And somewhere around the middle rounds, it's going to just break out into a barn burner if it didn't break out before, right? This is the case with Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford and Fulton versus Inoue. We got a grandmaster in Fulton facing a very skilled fighter who has not become a grandmaster yet at it because he does not know the craft in Noe Inoue like Fulton does. You gotta have the skills, no doubt about it. Inouye's got some skills. They're not fully honed, but he's got skills. He's got some defense that he got to work on. He has great offense, especially embellished with his power. So he has great offense. He's been scorching everybody, but he's had one or two tough fights in his entire career. His toughest fight was Nonito Donaire. Fulton is a much more crafty, much more skilled, honed skills we're talking about, and much more knowledgeable and smarter fighter than Nonito Donaire. Okay? So, Fulton brings to the table a lot for Inoue to handle, and I just think he's deficient in too many areas. And a lot of people are saying, well, Inoue, he's got that power, man. But what does that mean? You may have power. You may be precise against a certain kind of fighter. Sure. You may even play chess with a certain kind of fighter and have learned some things from certain kinds of fighters. But don't get it twisted. What are you going to rely on when power is not enough? The elite fighter and his power. Okay. Errol Spence is not going to be relying on his power alone. Right? And we're not saying he's relying on his power alone. He's a smart fighter too. But he doesn't have that experience. He doesn't have that veteran experience. What I mean by that is there's certain veteran moves in the sport of boxing, and there's certain ways to handle opponents that have nothing to do with punching. Nothing whatsoever. Okay? And so that's where Inouye's got a lot to learn. And that's why I got Fulton beating him. Hands down. I know Fulton's going to beat him. And that leads me. So that's why that fight, I can predict a winner. And that's why that fight is not a better fight than Spence versus Crawford. It's not. Just not. But it's a hell of a fight between one pound for pound fighter and one fighter who's going to be on the pound for pound list after this fight. Which leads me to Fulton versus Inoue weigh-in. Fulton's definitely dialed in. Fulton's definitely focused. And we saw it in the weigh-in where he did not want to remove his eyes from Inoue. He will lock into Inoue right down to it showed he's dialed in, he's focused. That's what it showed. And that's going to be very important because he's got to be focused for 12 rounds, which shouldn't be a problem for Fulton because any elite fighter, whether it's Mayweather, whether it's Spence, whether it's, all the elite fighters, they are dialed in. And this is an elite fighter. This is not the same kind of fighter. I mean, even Donaire wasn't as disciplined as this guy is. So, and knew he ain't gonna have no lucky knockout shot. He ain't gonna just set up this guy. This guy knows all the tricks that he knew he's already knows. He knows all of that already. He knew he can't bring a trap that Fulton doesn't know about. You see what I'm saying? So if Fulton knows all the stuff that he knew he knows, he can neutralize it. And once he neutralizes it, that's it. Because Fulton knows stuff that he knew he don't know. And that's the difference. And that's what's going to cause Fulton to win this fight. Y'all get caught up in power and all these kinds of crazy things. Like with Spence and Crawford, Crawford and Spence know about the same things, right? So in that case, now it comes down to, well, who's going to execute better? It's not even size. It's who's going to execute whatever they do better. So it's going to come down to, because they pretty much know what each other's going to do in there. Kind of. They have a general idea. They don't know the specifics of how they're going to do it and the timing and everything and how quick they're going to be, but they generally have an idea of what they're going to do, right? So Fulton's razor sharp dialed in, and it's just all about focus. So once Fulton keeps his focus, he should be able to win the fight. If he loses focus for 1 second, he's going to lose the fight because he knew he's a guy you can't slip up like that. But then again, the elite fighters, they don't slip up. Right. So that's why I have Fulton beating Inoue. People saying this is a 50-50 fight. This is not a 50-50 fight. This is not one of those. Fulton's looking at Inoue like he's food. He came to Japan to beat Inoue. He didn't come to Japan for no other reason. Y'all, again, media tends to make it seem like Inouye's the guy that's going to knock out Fulton. Inouye's the guy who is really the dude because, he's pound for pound #1 and all of these things. Some of y'all was picking Canelo to beat Bivol. I told y'all Bivol was going to beat Canelo. I told y'all that. I don't look at media hype. I don't look at smoke and mirrors. I look at the styles. I look at what these guys bring to the table. I know Canelo had problems with Caleb Plant. I know you're going to have problems with Bivol, right? Foot cardio, right? When Canelo goes to face Jermell Charlo, you're going to have problems with Jermell Charlo. As I heard the fight, I again, just like the Bivol fight, I picked Charlo to win. And Charlo's going to pull it off, right? Because Canelo has deficiencies. He has deficiencies. Great fighter, but he got deficiencies. And y'all will say, well, Canelo got deficiencies. How about Errol Spence? Errol Spence got deficiencies. Not the same. Errol Spence can pivot. I told y'all there are few people in boxing that can actually pivot, really pivot. Errol's one of them. So that's what makes it interesting with Errol versus Crawford. If you have a size advantage over a guy, you need to use it. If you have a reach advantage over a guy, you need to use it. You need to use whatever you have as an advantage. You'd be stupid not to use your advantages against an opponent. Right? Stupid. And these are smart fighters. So Fulton is the taller, longer guy. Again, Inoue, as Donaire said, as I said, this is a similar thing like Crawford. Inoue mostly doesn't shorten up his shots. So he gets mostly his power off his extensions. Now, if Inoue changes it up and comes to Fulton with shorter shots, Fulton's going to know that. And Fulton will adjust his defense to suit. But as of now, as far as I do know, if Fulton goes deep into the pocket or he's fighting him from the outside, he's got advantages. Because it's not a physically bigger opponent than you. He's a smaller guy. Doesn't mean he's not strong, but he's a smaller guy. You get it? So I expect Fulton to rough him up, and I expect Fulton to, y'all. I'm telling you, Fulton's looking at Inoue as food. I'm done. I'm done talking, man. I'm done talking about this fight. Well, I wish I could narrate this fight. I really wish I could. I get the ESPN subscription and everything, and I pay for it. But it's just funding still is a problem. Otherwise, I would literally commit this fight. But this is all I got for you guys for right now. What you need. Um, y'all gonna have to excuse me for being so quote unquote arrogant and cursing out some fans and cursing out the people in the industry because um y'all ain't paying me, so I don't care. And I wouldn't, even if you're paying me, I would say the same thing. I'm not going to change it. um because I'm seeing too much stupidness. I'm seeing too much stupid, false, fake narratives. And you just need to know boxing, man. And a lot of people out here say you need to know boxing. No, no, no. I break it down. Y'all saw me break it down just a minute ago. Y'all that saw me explain Spence versus Crawford, how the fight would start, regardless of how the fight turns out and everything. This is the approach these guys are going to use because this is what their advantages are, right? So we expect Terrence Crawford to use his reach advantage starting off the fight. We expect them to be feeling each other out, trying to get shots in, also looking to see how each other react to certain things they do. We expect that, right? We expect Spence to come out looking to jab from the get-go and find his target from the get-go, and even possibly bully Crawford to see what kind of power pop he has, if he needs to respect his power pop and all of that stuff, right? We expect that, right? So what I'm saying is what I'm saying here is not irrational. It's not something, but like a lot of people don't really, they talk a lot. A lot of people talk, right? And it's cool to talk, but if you don't know what the fuck you're talking, why don't you just shut the fuck up and watch? Okay. So that's why, because I see we're in the age with a lot of trolling, a lot of stupid comments, a lot of stupidity out here. People who they get a chance to have a voice, so they abuse it, and they quite frankly, I mean, it really is annoying. That's what I'll say. If you're putting yourself out there like I am, they try to target you and say all kinds of stupid shit, to defend shit, and it annoys me. I like classy people. So like the people I just talked about, who I see as classy journalists out there, even Al Bernstein, even though of recent times he's been kind of biased in what he was saying. Al Bernstein, also another reputable journalist. I have a lot of respect for him in calling fights. And he'd been doing it for so many years, and he understood that he didn't really know much about boxing like that. He'd been around boxing and everything, but he didn't know boxing like that. Like he was humble. He was a humble guy. That's what I mean. He know a lot about boxing, but he was a humble guy, and he let the professionals, the boxers and people in boxing and trainers and so have their say over what he was seeing. And he would say what he was seeing. He would say what he was observing. And he was to me, a very honest journalist. And I really have a lot of respect for him for that. Other good commenters in boxing, I would say Paulie Malignaggi, but sometimes Paulie be up in his feelings, and so as a result of that, he sometimes is extremely biased and he sounds extremely stupid. But Paulie, for calling a fight, generally he calls the fights right. Roy Jones Jr. is also an excellent commentator. I always really have a lot of respect for Roy Jones Jr. To this day, I have respect for Roy Jones Jr. I really appreciate him as a commentator. In terms of people, again, Chris Algieri has been doing excellent job. He's been doing an excellent job as a commentator. But again, as a fighter, he would know what he's seeing. And I like how Chris can also articulate certain things that the general commentary teams, I don't hear them articulating. So Chris Algieri is another good one. Sean Porter, he's good. He's good. Yeah, he's not the best out there. Sometimes he doesn't exactly pinpoint, certain things that but he's such a nice personality, and he's a nice guy. I like him. So how he's even calling Spence versus Crawford and whether he's favoring Crawford or Spence, he gives you good reasons and he gives you so much insight into the sport, which is what I like about uh, Sean, because Sean will actually give you some really good nuggets. So, as a commentator, he's still getting there in terms of trying to pick out and say certain things that are happening in the ring, are um, which are like sometimes there's so much stuff that happened. You have to sift through it and be concise, and at the same time just kind of capture what it is that you just saw correctly. I like Roy because Roy could see when a fight's turning one way or another, and you know, Roy would Roy would actually tell you what the fight is going to do. So that's what I liked about Roy, because Roy could actually see what was happening, and he knows from being a boxer, he knows what the boxers are kind of feeling and everything. So he knew when the tide would shift. Another guy who was a pretty good, but sometimes was in there for the jig. George Foreman was another good commentator. George Foreman was also another good commentator in boxing that I really appreciated. And then you have some other guys that are coming on now at the scene. I heard David Benavidez once or twice with a couple of fights. Um, I've heard fighters commentate. Keith Thurman's very insightful. Keith Thurman's a very good commentator as well. I don't know why he doesn't just go into commenting, because he's very good and very insightful. I haven't really heard him call a fight bad. And he's very insightful as well. So Keith Thurman's another guy that you really should. They're underusing him. He's really good. Um, who else do we in commentating? Oh, well, I do actually like Sergey. What's his name? The 154 pounder. Sergio. What's his name? Sergio. What? I can't remember right now. He does. He does jabs with Chris Mannix and Sergio Mora. Sergio Mora is good, but sometimes he gets biased, very biased for certain fighters that he likes. So that's the thing that I don't appreciate about Sergio Mora. But for the most part, he does call fights well. But when the company or whoever is backing some A side or something, he sometimes goes awry with it, and it's really not cool. Yeah, so that is basically it for me. We're almost going on 2 hours, but I just wanted to go into detail about this fight, Spence versus Crawford, which is the fight. This is fight week, people. So don't forget to go out there and check out these fights. Enjoy yourselves. Oh yes, my channel. If you want to donate to this channel, don't forget you can donate via PayPal. Like I say, the link will be after the stream has finished and completed. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to say that you could be a guest on What You Need as well. Maybe the next stream I'll do that. If you guys want to come in, say your pieces on Spence versus Crawford, or on any material that we covered here, whether it's Spence versus Crawford, or it's Fulton versus Inouye. You're going to comment on that, or even what I was talking about in terms of false narratives created by bad journalism. If you want to talk on any of these topics right now, or even on some other miscellaneous topic that's exchanged, feel free to do so. I decided to do this stream in the morning. I didn't care. It's a spontaneous stream. I know there's a significant amount of people who will view this stream, even though YouTube is not picking it up. But what I want to say to you guys is that with anything in life, you're going to find people who are targeted for telling the truth and being truthful about things. So do bear that in mind. And What You Need is going to get out of here right now. An hour, 44 minutes, and 33 seconds. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is What You Need. Peace.